over a dozen humanoid robots performing martial arts with swords and nunchucks on live national television. While China is putting humanoids on primetime TV, ByteDance is rolling out a new AI model it claims matches GPT 5.2, and Apple is quietly opening CarPlay to ChatGPT-style assistants. 3 separate announcements, 3 different geographies, one unmistakable pattern. AI isn't staying in data centers anymore. It's moving onto stages, into competition, and into your car. Today, we're separating what was real from what was choreographed, and what all of it tells you about where AI is actually going next. The CCTV Spring Festival Gala is China's largest annual television broadcast. Think of it as the country's primary stage for celebrating culture, entertainment, and increasingly technological ambition. On February 29, 2026, Reuters reported that 4 Chinese robotics startups brought humanoids to that stage: Unitree Robotics, Galbit, Noetix, and Magic Lab. The centerpiece was Unitree. Over a dozen Unitree humanoids performed choreographed martial arts sequences. They wielded swords and poles. They performed what Reuters described as drunken boxing imitations, a traditional Chinese martial art known for unpredictable, swaying movements that require real balance and motion control. The robots moved in synchronized groups, and crucially, when they fell during the routine, they recovered, getting back up without operator intervention. That fault recovery moment matters. We'll come back to why. This wasn't a static demonstration in a lab. This was a full-scale, live broadcast performance involving multiple robots, props, child performers on stage nearby, and millions of viewers. Before dismissing this as just choreography, understand what choreography actually requires at this scale. Reuters explicitly highlighted 2 technical achievements: multi-robot coordination and fault recovery. Let's break those down. Multi-robot coordination means all those Unitree humanoids weren't being individually controlled by remote operators. They were executing a synchronized routine together, which requires each robot to perceive its position relative to others, maintain timing, and adjust for environmental variations, stage lighting, floor texture, the presence of human performers nearby. That's a computer vision and real-time decision-making problem. Fault recovery is more significant than it sounds. When a rigid limb robot falls, it typically stays down. Recovery requires the robot to sense its position, recognize it's on the ground, and execute a sequence of movements to right itself, all without a human operator taking control. According to Live Science, improvements in Unitree's performance are being credited to AI-driven LiDAR localization for spatial awareness, upgraded motors for torque control, dexterous hands for grip and balance, and what the industry calls cluster control, AI. Systems managing groups of robots as a coordinated unit rather than individuals. This is measurable capability. It's not autonomous factory work, but it's not simple puppeteering either. Reuters reported 3 critical implications, and we need to state each one clearly. First, public spectacle translates into industrial policy. Reuters quoted industry sources saying that appearing on the Spring Festival Gala stage can directly lead to government contracts, investor attention, and market access. This isn't entertainment for entertainment's sake. It's a pipeline. Companies that perform here gain credibility and capital that translates into production orders. Second, the performance jump in 1 year is real. Reuters included commentary from industry consultants noting that the capability gap between last year's Gala performance and this year's was substantial. That acceleration matters because it suggests the R&D investment is paying off in measurable progress. Third, China's market dominance in humanoid robots is significant and growing. Reuters cited Omdia data. China accounted for approximately 90% of the roughly 13,000 humanoids shipped globally last year. That's not a marginal difference. That's a near monopoly on physical AI hardware production. The same report projected growth in orders for 2026. A choreographed stage routine still requires real motion control, balance, perception, and recovery. It's not fake or trivial, but it's also not the same as unscripted factory work where robots encounter unexpected obstacles and adapt in real time. The Gala performance is proof of concept. Factory deployment is the next step. While humanoids were performing in China, ByteDance announced Doubao 2.0. According to Reuters, ByteDance is positioning this model for what it calls the agent era, a shift from models that answer questions to models that execute complex multi-step tasks autonomously. ByteDance makes 3 specific claims about Doubao 2.0 Pro. First, it matches OpenAI's GPT 5.2 and Google's Gemini 3 Pro in complex reasoning and multi-step task execution. This is a head-to-head competitive claim. Second, it reduces usage costs by approximately an order of magnitude, meaning roughly 10 times cheaper per inference. ByteDance says this. Third, it's purpose-built for the agent era, meaning the model is optimized not just for answering, but for planning and executing tasks. These are company claims. We need to evaluate them against what we actually know about GPT 5.2. Here's what ChatGPT's GPT 5.2 actually is, based on OpenAI's public information. In ChatGPT, GPT 5.2 supports a full suite of integrated tools: web search, data analysis, code execution, file and image analysis, analysis, image generation, and memory functions. When OpenAI introduced GPT 5.2, they emphasized stronger performance on knowledge work, tasks, and improved tool integration, meaning the model can access these capabilities and chain them together for complex workflows. Now let's compare the positioning. Doubao 2.0's claim, agent era model, lower cost, matches GPT 5.2 in reasoning. GPT 5.2's actual position, broad tool ecosystem inside ChatGPT, stronger knowledge work performance, improved tooling. What we don't know yet, whether Doubao 2.0 actually matches GPT 5.2 in real-world reliability, whether it integrates tools as smoothly, whether the cost advantage is sustainable, or whether the agent framing is marketing or technical reality. Here's the grounded conclusion. Doubao 2.0 is positioned as a lower-cost, agent-style competitor according to ByteDance. That's a credible positioning in a market where cost and efficiency matter, but the real test is real-world reliability, tool integration quality, and how well it handles user workflows. Outside of benchmarks, ByteDance is making an aggressive play, but the proof is in deployment, not announcements. Reuters noted that Doubao 2.0 wasn't an isolated launch. It was part of a broader wave of Chinese AI model announcements during Spring Festival. Essentially, China's AI companies launching simultaneously to create market momentum. That's a coordinated strategy, not coincidence. While China was announcing humanoids and ByteDance was launching Doubao 2.0, Apple made a quieter but significant change. iOS 26.4 beta introduces a new CarPlay category specifically for voice-based conversational apps. This is the technical infrastructure that allows services like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude to run on CarPlay with their own dedicated interface. Until now, voice assistants on CarPlay were limited to Siri. Third-party AI apps could exist on iOS, but they didn't have a native CarPlay presence. This change creates that presence. It's a formal entry point for voice-first AI assistants into the car. Here's where credibility matters. Apple isn't opening CarPlay completely. The new entitlement comes with strict limitations, and these limitations tell you exactly how Apple is thinking about AI in cars. First, voice is the primary interaction method. Apple is explicitly designing this to minimize distraction while driving. You're not getting a full ChatGPT interface on your dashboard. You're getting a voice-first experience. Second, third-party AI apps cannot replace Siri or become system-wide assistants. Users have to manually launch ChatGPT or Gemini. There's no wake-word activation like there is with Siri. You can't say, "Hey Siri, ask ChatGPT," and have it work seamlessly. You have to open the app first, then talk to it. Third, these apps aren't accessible via steering wheel controls the way Siri is. Steering wheel buttons still launch Siri, not third-party assistants. This is intentional. Apple is preserving Siri's position as the primary system assistant while creating a sandbox for competitors. According to iClarified, iOS 26.4 is currently in beta, with expected public release later in spring 2026. The car is becoming a controlled environment for voice agents. Apple is saying, yes, you can use ChatGPT in your car, but only under these conditions. Voice first, no system integration, manual launch. This is Apple choosing a middle path. It's not banning third-party AI assistants. That would be heavy-handed and arguably anti-competitive. But it's not handing them equal standing with Siri either. Apple is saying, you get in, but on Apple's terms, with Apple's safety constraints. Why does this matter? Because the car is one of the last major computing environments where a single company can control the hardware, software, and user experience completely. Apple isn't ceding that control. It's negotiating terms. Third-party AI apps get access, but through a constrained, voice-first, intentionally limited interface designed to keep the driver focused on the road. The real shift isn't just that models are getting better. It's where these models live. They're no longer confined to servers and phones. They're on stages performing martial arts. They're embedded in competing software ecosystems, and they're moving into your car, but only as passengers, not drivers.